am Vero, and you're watching Modern Immigrant. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of Modern Immigrant. Happy to be here, starting the year with amazing stories and amazing interviews that I did at the end of the last year. But I'm excited. I couldn't wait to share them with all of you. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to check out these interviews. And don't forget that you can always subscribe and you can follow us on Instagram at Modern Immigrants so you learn more of the things that we're doing besides the podcast as our project Immigration is King. Today, Ruben Flores-Martinez is here with us and he's going to share his amazing immigration story. Ruben is literally the definition of the American dream that I want to believe in. His story inspired me like you have no idea, and I know it's going to inspire you as well. He immigrated to the US when he was 13 years old with his family from Guadalajara, Mexico, and he taught himself how to code, how to build websites, how to create apps and businesses, all from his computer watching YouTube. Because guess what? He wasn't able to go to college because of his immigration status, but he didn't see that as an obstacle. He found opportunities to still pursue his dream. Today, he's the founder of CashDrop, and it's just an amazing mobile app that helping small business owners start their businesses. And the inspiration of his project was found where he comes from with his roots and with his background, which I think that's something beautiful that you're gonna learn from him in this interview. It's also really important to mention that Ruben talks about the discrimination he faced in the industry, trying to find funding, trying to find people who believe in him. So we talk about how challenging that was and how Latinx founders are struggling to find that funding, to find people that believe in them. So let's listen to his story, let's find inspiration, and let's keep going after our dream, because stories like Ruben's really makes it real and really makes us know that we want to do this. So check out his Instagram and CashDrop if you're also a small business owner. Again, thank you for being here, and leave us in the comments what's your favorite part, what do you like the most, and if it inspired you as well. Bye. Thank you. So today we're in another episode of Modern Immigrant, and I'm really excited to have Ruben here with us. So Ruben, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's really an honor to discover new stories and new immigration journeys. And I usually start these interviews by asking my guests, when did their immigration journey start, or what's your relationship with immigration?
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Guadalajara, Mexico. And I grew up there until I was about 13 years old. And then my parents immigrated to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, actually. And I've been in Chicago for about 4 years. So I'm at this time where, like, a few years ago, it was the threshold where I've been a little bit longer in the U.S. than I've been in Mexico. So it was a really big, like, milestone for me, because I always, thought of myself as a Mexican man growing up in America.
Yes. How do you feel right now? How do you identify yourself right now? I know that can be a very complex topic for immigrants.
It is. I mean, I still consider myself, a Mexican man growing up in America, even though I've been in America a lot longer now than I've been in Mexico. But,
yeah,
it's funny, a lot of times where I'm counting really fast or I'm like doing the alphabet, I still do it in Spanish. But I did start dreaming in English a few years ago, which was a really weird thing. So it's like just really weird cultural things, I think, that happens. But I think, like, when I really think about my identity, who I am, and it's obviously about, like, where I always draw inspiration and my reference points, and that's always where I grew up in Guadalajara. Like, all of my entrepreneurial endeavors are always heavily rooted by, like, the things that I saw when I was growing up, particularly like tianguis and like traveling flea markets that would be around in my area. And so you were always kind of, at least me, I'm always referring back to that, which I think is why I still consider myself from there, but currently, like, building my life in the U.S.
Yes, it's like we carry that with us wherever we go. I think it's impossible to separate those things.
Yeah.
And you're talking a little bit about challenges, but I would like to focus or ask you more directly, what are some big challenges or one or many that you have had to deal with as an
Yeah.
immigrant in the USA?
I definitely think, when my family came to the U.S., we came with a tourist visa and we overstayed. So I was undocumented most of my, young adult life. And obviously that was a really big challenge for me, growing up, because it just closed so many doors and prevented me from having access to so many different opportunities like scholarships and, ability to go to college right after high school. And, it's something I feel like your parents always go out of their way to like shroud you from, as an immigrant kid growing up. But obviously at some point reality just strikes and you can't escape it. And, you're kind of left high and dry. And that's something very, very challenging. And even just from like the psychological perspective and the toll that can have into a, 17, 18-year-old kid. And, I feel like one of the biggest problems in our communities, as immigrants is that we isolate each other, right? Like, I mean, you're dealing with very heavy, heavy topics at a very young age, but I feel like we've been trained to kind of feel as if we're the only ones going through this. We kind of suffer a little bit from protagonist disease, and I mean, it's tough not to. But I think, as I kind of started going to that for myself, I just kind of came to this realization that, listen, I'm not special. Like, this isn't happening to just me. Like, I'm one of tens of millions of people that if I only took the time to look to my left and to my right, like more people than you even think about, kind of share that story. And I think that, if we only were more vocal about it, if we ever, if we really like come to terms with that and seek other people that kind of share that same, story and path, I think that would be really impactful for a lot of our youth that goes to these problems. Like, it may not necessarily solve the issue, but I think that there's a really, really powerful effect that happens when you're just surrounded by people that are going through a very similar experience, and that can really help you cope with it and come to terms with it and figure out ways. There's always a way.
Yes. 100%. I'm such a big advocate of just sharing stories, and
Yeah.
I think that's the main reason why I wanted to create this space. And I really appreciate people that want to come here and talk about this, because I received messages of people saying, I didn't know I wasn't the only one. Like, that's the one
Right.
constant feedback I receive. And there's a point where you feel, well, I feel alone in my immigration journey. But then when you start connecting with others, as you said, it might not fix the problem, but it definitely creates community and support, which
Right.
at the end is the only way to overcome, I think, the immigration journey.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, safety in numbers, right? Like, and it also creates this thing like, I understand why, we think this way because we live in fear. Like, it's not, you are looking over your shoulder. You do feel like sometimes la migra is going to come knocking on your door and take your family away. Like, it isn't something that everybody is completely comfortable talking. I mean, it was something that I was ashamed of my personal story for the longest. I mean, it's only been about a few years where I just really became empowered by it and really felt like I could just like speak about it, not necessarily just for me, but to like,
Mm.
you know, find others and address others that are going through a similar situation and just kind of like be like, look, I'm here, to help out. Like, I can give you advice. I've been through it, but there's so many, many others.
Mm.
And, also by virtue of that, I think it's almost our responsibility for us to feel like we do have a voice and we don't have that fear to kind of give a vicarious voice to those who don't have it or do live in fear. And
Right.
almost, like I said, I think it's almost like a social duty
Mm.
of some of these immigrants to be very proud and very outspoken about our heritage, so that we can, help out our youth, right? Like, one of my mottos in life is be who you needed when you were young, and that's why I'm so spoken about it, right? Like, I want to always like find that 17-year-old version of me that's sitting in a chair undocumented, thinking this is the end of the road, and show them that there's always a way, right? That there's other people that can point to, and it's such a powerful thing. I think we take it for granted how
Yes.
impactful that can actually be. But I think like 99% of being successful is feeling that you can achieve something, right? Everything else is just trial and error, right? Like, I think to an immigrant, like, success success is the only outcome. Failure doesn't exist, because for us, it's either that or death, right? Like, you're always going to do what you need to do to put food on the table for the family. You're always going to do what you need to do to for the ones you love, right? So, I think by that virtue is we just have to be very vocal to show others, like, just keep going. There's other people that are going through it. You're not alone. And that sense of community actually can move mountains more than anything else.
So important. And I'm excited to soon ask you about what you're currently doing, because I think that's going to show a lot of the listeners and the youth that are listening to say, oh, you can reach this successful career and business. And he felt like I was feeling when he was a teenager, right? And we're going to get there. But I first want to ask you, what do you think has been the most rewarding part of your immigration? The thing that you have enjoyed the most, or learned the most about yourself?
I guess in a very messed up sense, I enjoy being the underdog, right? Like, I'll never forget that, when I was graduating high school and I figured out that I couldn't go to college because my undocumented status, I had this like breakdown, and I'll never forget, my dad just kind of sat me down in this moment. I was just like losing my mind, and he told me, listen, Ruben, like, these are the cards that the universe dealt you. Like, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far as anybody in this country. There's nothing you can do about it. This is what you are. But what are you going to do? You can give up, or you can keep trying. And that really stuck to me, because it kind of like really proved everything, my entire life, and then my dad's life and my grandfather's life. And I feel like I saw this recursive chain going back to like the beginning of my story of like, we've been put in this situation where, the adversity is very self-evident. You're always fighting for survival. You're always fighting for progress for yourself and for your family. But I feel like that's almost, when you kind of cross the chasm to the other side and you look back, I feel like it's what makes it so much more rewarding, right? Because you get to this point where like you realize what the value of earning $1 is. Like, you realize the sacrifice and the platform that you stand on because of others that literally put their life on the line for you to get to that point. And I think that that's like the sweetest thing that you can taste in life, to be like, wow, like, I am the byproduct of so much sacrifice and work, and I'm the one that actually are here, and I'm really like showing up for all of that, and that's the most rewarding thing, because you really, you have that reference point, you really value it at that point, and you just don't get lost in like this never-ending cycle of losing, the meaning of why you work so hard, why you want to push everything forward. And it's a really weird concept, but I think it's something that it's already inherently built into immigrants, right?
Yes, I think so too. It's what we have seen too, like within our family or the people that inspire us the most. It's like we don't have another option but to keep going.
Exactly. And this is why I'm so proud to be an immigrant, right? Like, I had this epiphany a few years ago that, it, immigration is a byproduct of the human condition, right? Like, nobody wakes up wanting to leave everything behind and like risking everything to walk thousands of miles to get to the border. And, like, that's not something anybody ever wants. So being an immigrant signifies sacrifice. Because being an immigrant, and that's when you really go into it. Like, being an immigrant is inherently like completely sacrificing yourself for the better of others. It's never, nobody really ever immigrates for themselves. It's always because your family, because your kids, because your mom, whatever it is. Like, it's always because of somebody else that you're going to sacrifice everything to try to make it, right? And I think that that's something that every human already would do. Like, who wouldn't do that? Like, right now it just happens to be on one side of the table, but 100 years ago it was white people from Europe going to the same thing. And even before, like, it's, the tables are always turning. But I think that that really proves that, there's something there that makes us human. There's something there that kind of keeps us connected to what really matters at the end of the day, which are the people and the family and like the connections that you have. And that's kind of the world that I want to live, like, where everybody wakes up and realizes, like, shit, I actually would do anything in my power to make sure that my kids, have the opportunity to reach their dreams, so my family has the ability to live out their dreams. Because at the end of the day, that what else matters in this life? Not much more besides that.
100%, and I can't imagine how proud your parents are on your successes and what you have accomplished. And you were speaking on the challenges of like realizing that you couldn't go to college, right?
Yeah.
And something that really caught my attention when I connected with you was the fact that you really taught yourself to build, businesses, apps, websites. Why don't you tell us a little bit more on that, and how were you able to manage what you have accomplished today?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm a proud graduate of YouTube University.
Nice.
And again, it was kind of like out of necessity, right? Like, I was unable to go to school, and I kind of had this big realization, like I can either go, work at a factory with my dad under the table, or I can figure something out. And I just refused to believe that my parents had sacrificed everything to give me this ability to get to this point just so that I would do the same thing that my dad was doing. Not because that's a bad living, but because I just wanted to desperately believe that their sacrifice meant something more, right? And I was just determined to do justice to that. And my girlfriend at the time started going to university up in Milwaukee, and I just kind of had this moment where I said, look, she's gonna be at campus all day, every day. Like, I don't necessarily need to be in a classroom to learn something, right? I've always been very driven and motivated. And I was like, listen, we live in this era where I can literally go on Google or on YouTube and I can ask any question you could ever think of. And there's always going to be somebody somewhere teaching it to you. Now it's just about like putting in the time and the effort to actually teach yourself a practical skill, particularly in this time and era where like anybody anywhere can literally write a piece of code and solve a problem that has global scale and just literally change the world overnight. Like, that's an incredible amount of power that anybody has. And technology doesn't see legal status. It doesn't see citizenship or race. It's just anybody can do it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was like the next gold rush to me. And I would just go to campus with my girlfriend. And she borrowed me her student ID so I can log into Wi-Fi. And I just started like how to make apps, how to code, how to do this, how to do that. And I would start just thinking of like, what are actual practical problems that I could turn into a business that would require me to build an app or a website, right? Like, that's how I can start kind of laying out the foundation or the quote unquote syllabus of what I need to learn, right? But it
Yeah.
was always like capitalistically driven, right? Like, what's the idea? What's the business? And then recursively go into like, well, I need to know how to do this and this and this so that I can actually build that business from scratch. And that's what I did. I mean, it wasn't easy. It took a lot of time. I was literally there 8 hours a day, taking notes and just
Wow.
putting in the effort, right? But it was free. I had access to it. I didn't have to wake up at 4 in the morning to go break my back for $8.75 an hour. Like, my parents were already doing that for that. Like, and even though I felt that I was already at a great disadvantage, I was actually ahead of a lot of other people that I know and love, because a lot of people didn't have the luxury to actually be sitting on a campus for 8 hours learning something new. There's people that actually have to go work in a
Mhm.
factory, or they go hungry. They go to sleep hungry, or their family doesn't eat. So, I still felt very blessed, even though I felt that I was already at a great disadvantage. And that was one of those things where I said, look, I can't throw that away. I got to really make it mean something. And I just put in the effort, put in the time, and I just quickly realized that I was pretty good at the coding piece. And
Mm.
that was kind of like the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. Like, I've had acquired this very practical skill that was very valuable in this time and age, right? Something that I had acquired for free, just the time. And now I was unstoppable, right? Like, I felt like, look, I got to this point. I'm not going to let another piece of paper dictate my worth in life. I have what I need, right? And I think this is why it's so important to actually like take the time to seek other people that share your story, because like, I personally know paisas that are millionaires working undocumented under the table. Like, I know people that are making tortillas and are making money. I know people that are selling all kinds of stuff, or flipping cars, or flipping, like, there's success. There's so many ways to get to success, but like, when you learn about these people, I'm like, look, these people actually found a way, right? Like, I know of many people that even if they got even if they got deported, it doesn't matter. Like, I know people that were here undocumented, made a few $1 million, build a rancho back at home. Now they leave the country. They don't need to be here. They're successful, right? Like, they built these ways. And it's just something that I just wish I could just be at the top of Mount Everest and just yell at every single kid that looks like me and be like, you look, this is an example. This is an example. This is an example you can point to, because the goal is not for you to kind of make it like them. I want you to be able to make it 10 times bigger, 10 times faster, right? Because that's how we compound generational change. And maybe at that point, like maybe in 10 years, if we actually unlock that, we don't have to leave our countries. Maybe we can build $1 billion business back where we came from. Like, and then we don't have to immigrate anymore. Like, there's just so many ways of how this could unfold, but it really just begins by this notion of just teaching people, like, just believe that you can do it, right? Even if there isn't role models you can point to, just like have that belief that you can actually put in the time, apply the skill, and you are valuable enough to be that person. Like, you actually have enough self-worth to actually achieve whatever you feel your imagination tells you, and that's the most meta, but it's the most important piece of it. From there, like, funding can help, and like money can help, and tools can help, but at the end of the day, it's like that hustle and that grit is already inherently built within all immigrants, because that's the one thing you can't buy. Money can't buy you that, right?
Exactly. Money
Sorry,
can
I could
buy
go
no
for days
passion.
about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you for speaking on this and sharing this. I think it's it motivates me, really. It's amazing. So I know it probably took you some time, but we would love to hear like your current app or business. Like, when did that start? Did you had any others prior to this one? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, so after I taught myself how to code,
Hmm.
I started just like hustling, with this new acquired skill,
Yeah.
uh, making like websites and apps for people. And it was the interesting thing is, like, I was almost always was around helping a business owner like put their business online or sell something or advertise something they were selling. That's kind of like the theme of all the stuff that I was doing, and I was making pretty good money. I mean, like, again, this is something that I taught myself how to do on YouTube, and fast for a few years, like, this side hustle was enough for me to like pay the bills, and like me and my wife, were able to like move to a nice place. So I was actually
That's
doing
great.
pretty good
Yeah.
just by doing this, right? And uh, my girlfriend and I got married actually at 18, so we're 30 now. We're 12 years married,
Oh,
and
wow.
that
Nice.
and that helped me kind of fix my immigration status, and I was able to eventually go back to school after 2 or 3 years of like gap. But I already was in the middle of this like technological revolution, like making money, side hustles, and stuff like that. And fast forward, a few years later, I actually dropped out of school because I felt like I already know everything that I need to, right? Like, I already have all the skills. I'm already making money. I already can take care of myself, and I just really wanted to prove it wrong to the system again. Like, I'm not going to let another piece of paper stand in the way of my destiny. Like, I have
Yes.
everything I need. I have everything, right? Like, it's up to me. It's not up to the system anymore. Um, and I just became a full-time entrepreneur ever since. And I started a previous company for a few years, and that project unfortunately didn't really go as far as we wanted to, and we ended up shutting it down. So it's like that first big like failure after kind of pursuing it. But in hindsight, obviously, like, you always kind of need to have that reference point, that big failure that kind of always is the precursor to the success. And about 2 years ago, it was kind of like that transition where, like, I've learned everything that I need to. I've met a lot of people. I kind of built a network. This business that I put my heart and soul for a few years didn't work out. Like, what am I going to do next? Like, just have to keep moving forward. There's no time to look back anymore. Just what's next? What's next? What's next? And I kind of came to this realization, kind of reflecting on my story, my journey. And I asked myself, where can I make the most impact in the world, right? With all the skills that I have. And I started reflecting back to my time in Guadalajara, right? Like, one of the most impactful stories of my childhood is there was this traveling flea market that would kind of like congregate outside of my doorstep every Saturday, and it's something that had been happening for over 100 years in Guadalajara. So you have like entrepreneurs all over the city that would come to the same neighborhood and like drop a table or a tent in the floor, and that was all that they needed to start a business. And this is how commerce really exists with the majority of humans in the world, like Latin America and Asia and Africa. Like, this is how average people do business with each other. And I just kind of had this epiphany of like, it seems like we're at this crossroads in humanity where everything's going digital, right? It's the next great frontier. And for the first 20 years of the internet, we're also like about connecting with each other. But I felt like now the next 20 years after that, it's like now that we're all connected with each other, I think the next step is like to sell shit to each other, right? Like the commerce is the next 20 years. And you reflect back to these tianguis and flea markets and you realize that like doing business in the digital world isn't as easy as it is in real life yet. And this is why, I read the statistic that said about 8% of the world's commerce is digitized. So there's trillions and trillions of dollars that are exchanging hands every day that aren't yet online. And there's this massive shift about to happen over the next 20, 30 years. So I said, look, I think that this is a great opportunity, right? Like, why? Because the last 5 years of how I've paid the bills is literally helping build Shopify stores and websites and apps for businesses. What if I put myself out of business, right? Like, what if I create something where people no longer need me, something that's really easy, something very templatized, where people like can just like talk to a chatbot and they can just like have a place to sell without needing a tech nerd like me to, that's going to charge them $2,000, $3,000 to do all that and take about a month to do. Like, so I became obsessed with this notion of like putting myself out of business, right? Everything that I have built in my side hustle empire, like I was like, I need to literally eradicate that. And that's the next big thing. And that's exactly what CashDrop became to be, right? Like Kama's like the Venmo for business, like making it something really easy that enables people to start an online business, but that anybody from a 12-year-old all the way to a grandma can actually do it on their own without needing help from somebody. And that's what we've been doing ever since. We've been very blessed to be able to not only, create a profitable business that's growing, but also like, we see all these stories of people that are now feeling that they can actually start that side hustle. They've had an idea for 5 years and they feel like it's a little too difficult or be too expensive or cumbersome to start, but they hate their 9-to-5 job and they live their lives just hoping like, I know I could do it, but I don't know how to get started. So like, I think it's tools like CashUp now that just make it very, very accessible for people to actually see, what if I'm actually just going to go for it because it doesn't cost me anything. It's only going to take 10 minutes of my life to put it out into the world, right? At worst case scenario, it doesn't work and I still do whatever I'm already doing. At best case scenario, you create something from an idea to side hustle to an eventual lifestyle because that's the life we all want to live, right? Like we live in the era of the entrepreneur. Like, the founders and the stories that we tell each other is like, I think like what the majority of people want to live, like, because it represents this freedom to do whatever you want in life, to like achieve this success that's not only about monetary, but to feel like you build something that means something, right? Like that's what everybody wants, right? Now we're just making it easy for people to actually see that through, to actually have these ideas and start these random businesses. I mean, we had teenagers that start selling Pokemon cards or start making slime. We've had like older people that are just starting like little food pop-up businesses that they've always wanted to start because they have a family recipe. Like we've had people that start from like little, selling tacos out of their garage. Like now they're doing brick and mortars. And it was because this tool Cash App just enabled them to get started for nothing really easily. And they've just built and built and built and hustled their way into their dreams becoming a reality. And that's what we do for people, right? Like, we're the tool that can turn your dreams into an actual reality. And that's what we sell.
I love that. And I love that it represents a lot of what you have learned and a lot of what you share with us at the beginning about your immigration story, like how you were able to connect those two things or like blend that into an amazing purpose that can also speak to a lot of immigrants. I know immigrants, we struggle with creating our own business and starting our own thing, like having that ownership that you were talking about. I think it's so challenging. So I'm glad that we can count with apps and resources like the one you're sharing with us. And I would love for you to share, like, where can people find it, like either the website or the app? I'm sure it's easy to download since you're saying that it's pretty accessible.
Yeah. So we're very active on Instagram. To your earlier point, a lot of times in the immigrant communities of color, like, we've been overlooked by the tech world for so long that still like there's there's this very deep sense of mistrust sometimes with technology. That's why a lot of like business owners are very like still very cash heavy. You know, they still have like technology
Yes.
from like 30 years ago. So, you know, we want to tell a different story because we are from them, by them, right? Like we are a byproduct of this. You know, we understand that struggle. So we are very active, you know, and very proactive in like helping answer questions and just like have conversations with people. So to us, like, yes, well, you can just download the app and like set it up without really needing us. Um, I feel like there's still a lot of people that just want to feel like there's a human on the other side of the line and answer some questions, right? Like it could, because launching a business with a tool like CashDrop is simple, but being a business owner psychologically isn't easy. And these are some of the, like a lot of times that we have conversations with people, it's just a lot of people asking us for advice. It's like, well, how do you suggest I start this business? Like I have this idea, you know, like how can the tool help me? And so we do that a lot, actually. You know, we just kind of, you know, give our perspective to people so that they can actually feel like, oh shit, it's that easy for me to actually start that business idea that I've had, you know? So Instagram is a great place to get a hold of us if you want to have a conversation. Our handle is cashdrop.biz, B-I-Z. Very active there. If you just want to go straight and check out the app, you can go to cashdrop.com. Very proud that we bought the domain. It was very expensive, but it was a major accomplishment. Worth it. Cashdrop.com. You can see everything about the app, everything the app has to offer. You can download it directly from there. And like I said, it's something that is very easy and simple to set up. So you know that's kind of like the two ways that we put it out there. You know, one more like automated self-serve. But if you want to have conversations, if you want to get to know the team, we have a team that's very obsessed about just being very hands-on with merchants, make sure that they're successful with anything that they're doing.
And I will make sure I will add all those links to the episode description. But I feel really interested in asking you something before we wrap up. And it's about, you were talking about like how overlooked sometimes Latinos and people of color have been, you know, looked in the tech world.
Yeah.
Did you struggle personally, like creating this business and, you know, seeking funding or connecting with other people? Like, any discrimination, any challenges that you face because you were Latino or because you're an Mexican American?
Oh yeah. The venture industry definitely is plagued with bias and racism. It's just a fact. And you know, I mean, it's really weird for me to say this, and some people are like raise their eyebrows, but I like to say that the system isn't broken. The system is very good at working for the people that it was designed to work for, right? And I feel like it's our responsibility as immigrants and to come together, right, and build a system that works for us, because nobody's going to do it, right? And breaking through is very difficult as a Latino founder. You know, I came to learn that only about 1.5% of our venture dollars go to Black and Latino founders, right? We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars being deployed, and just literally the scraps go to minority founders. So it's a gigantic problem, right? Because a lot of times capital is an accelerant, and it really opens up a lot of doors. And you know, when I first started with CashDrop, we got to this point where we were really beginning to generate significant revenue, and we saw the potential how big this could be. And I said, okay, it makes sense to now like go and partner up with people that not necessarily help us. Like we didn't need help, right? Like we were growing. They were a profitable business at the time. So it's like we want to partner with people to see how big this can be and like take that journey with us. Right? It's not like we're begging for money to see if this could work. So I feel in my head like this should be fucking easy. Like this is about as easy as an investment as it typically gets. Because I hear stories of like, you know, white kids coming out of Stanford that literally get $10 million on a napkin idea that doesn't even exist, or that we don't know if it's going to work, right? So in my mind, I was like, I've already gotten it this far. I have to work twice as far to get half as far. Like, I would be shocked if somebody said that they didn't really believe in this business. And the sad reality was that when I was trying to raise capital in Chicago, it was that story. It's like everybody wouldn't believe me. Everybody really, I felt like the people didn't even take the time to listen to what I had to say, right? And it was very frustrating. Particularly, a lot of like Latino investors turned me down, and it's something that even to this day is like a big stain in my personal like emotional, state of being, because I felt like, well, if I can't even get the other Latino investors that have access to capital, like to endorse me, like what am I, right? Like maybe I'm just a clown. Maybe I'm not even, I'm way off.
Hard.
And yeah, and you kind of suffer from this identity crisis. But I started to just detach myself and say, look, I'm gonna start looking elsewhere. Like you have to find your tribe. And I just started like really putting my ideas out in LinkedIn, and randomly enough, like I met this guy from Colorado who connected me to, a group of venture capitalists in New York City. They were like two young black up and coming kids from Harvard that started a $40 million fund called Harlem Capital. And they immediately got it. They're like, I talked to them within days. They're like, wow, why hasn't anybody in Chicago given you money? This is crazy to us. And they literally, gave me $1 million on the spot. And then like that just kind of created this frenzy around CashDrop, where we've been very blessed. We were able to raise over $15 million in a matter of like months after that. And the tables turned. Now we turn down a lot more money than we raise. And it's a position that I think is very important to think as a founder, because, again, it proves that whole thing that I've been saying throughout this episode. Like us as minorities often have to work twice as hard to get half as far. But I think that there's this breaking point where working twice as hard now becomes this exponential compounding effect for how much brighter you shine, how much more progress you're able to do. Because at the end of the day, you are going to make sure that this company moves. You're not going to depend on somebody else to do it for you, right? You're going to die trying. There's a big neon sign that we have here in the CashDrop HQ that says "Get rich or die trying," and I feel like this is something that like we just live up to, because failure is not an option for us. Failure doesn't exist. It just simply means you stop trying, and we're going to keep going until we die, because we're not doing it for ourselves, right? Like the goal that we have as what I call social capitalists is, what happens when you wake up one day and CashDrop goes public, and 500 people that are black and Latino and minority and female become millionaires overnight? Like what would happen there? Because you see this all the time. Like when Uber goes public, 500 new millionaires. Like this company goes public, like billions of dollars get injected into a few hundred people. And what do those people do? They start investing, they start spending the money, they start doing that. What would happen if that happened to our communities? Like what's the first thing we would do if you woke up with 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars? Like you're not going to buy a Bugatti. You're going to go get your mom out of the hood. You're going to put her in a proper house. You're going to borrow your cousin $50,000 to start the businesses that was wanted. You're going to invest. You're going to buy these businesses. You're going to gentrify your communities, because gentrification isn't bad. Displacement is bad. Right? Like we want to live in nice communities. Why not? We deserve it, right? We work so hard for it, but we want to make sure that we're the ones with the name on the deed. We're the ones paying the taxes, because it belongs to us. That's how you generate wealth. And I think wealth is a very taboo topic for us immigrants, because we've never really truly had access to it, but nobody's going to hand it to us. We're going to have to really fight tooth and nail to do it, because at the end of the day, again, it's not for us. It's for the communities, for the families, because that's what happens. Like that's going to create this massive uplift for all of us to really get us out of this hole. And I just want to live in a world where there's brown and black millionaires and billionaires that are advocated, that are investing, that are lobbying for the world we want to live in. That's how we're going to create the system we want to live in. Nobody's going to build it for us. And you need money. But the money is just a byproduct of the hard work and the belief that you're going to have to just say, nothing is going to stop me, because I have this dream. I have this ability to just keep pushing forward. And there's so many people that look like me, right? You're not alone. You're not special, right? And I think that that's what changes the awareness. It changes the conscience. It changes the game for us. And I think in the next 10 to 15 years, the tables start turning. And I mean, that's the legacy. I feel like that at the end of the day, we should all want to build together, because we're part of this. We're on this boat together, right? Like your success is my success. I feel like right now the perception that immigrants have is that your success is at the expense of mine. Like if you're successful, you took my cake.
Takes away something. Yes.
And it's not like that. we should root for people that are making it happen, because we should expect out of those people that are making it happen to look back and open doors, right? And I'm very passionate about that. And it's something, like, you can find me on social media or send us a DM on the Cash App. And I'm very open about helping other entrepreneurs that are going through similar things, because I know all the bullshit that I had to go through to get to where I am. But I'm not going to let another person like me go through those. I'm going to open doors and connect them to the people that I've already found, to make sure that we can create these fast lines and these pipelines that work for us, to the people that believe what we believe, right? They're out there. You just can't alienate yourself and feel like it's you against the universe and you're alone in it.
Yeah.
You have to make yourself known and put yourself out there, so that you can find others that believe that and can help you. Right? And that's the collaboration effect that we desperately need, that we really have to be very outspoken about, and just understand what it's all about. We need money to get our community to the next level. That's why we work so hard at the end of the day, right? So I could go about this for days nonstop.
No, this is amazing, and I'm super happy that we were able to connect and all the things that you're sharing. I just want people to really hold on to this amazing message until this episode and listen to it every time you're feeling down or that you can make progress. We're here. We're making already amazing impact and changes. So, Ruben, thank you so much one more time for joining us in Modern Immigrant. All the links are in the description, so people can go check out the business and start using them soon. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks.